Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to be with you today and being here in Berlin in person. That's the best thing, because we keep such a distance. And in these days, we don't need distance, we need to come together. And it's such a special weekend, exactly after such a special weekend, to say exactly that, the weekend of the reunification. So much has been achieved over these decades. But we also see how complicated unification is, and sometimes still is. But as you see, so is life in the Union. Being one is not agreeing. Being one is not being without conflict. Being one is about wanting to achieve something better. And 30 years ago, Germany faced huge societal and economic challenges, but began the task with a lot of optimism and with a belief that the efforts that were made, that made the foundation for a better future. Today, we are also faced with unprecedented challenges. The effects of the corona crisis is deep. They affect every day in our lives deeply, our livelihoods. People have lost their lives. The European economies, they are suffering, and businesses have been hit very hard. Some very hard indeed. Member states and the European Union have acted rapidly to provide the necessary support to citizens and businesses in these difficult times. The pandemic is certainly not over, but it is still time for us to prepare for the future, to our recovery from this crisis. And the idea is not to go back to what things were, but to build a better, a greener, and a more digital future. And we will only succeed if we can do this together. Our cooperation is our strength, and lack of cooperation is our weakness. Europe has an excellent foundation. Within Europe, we have the benefits of a diverse competitive company structure of all sizes. Here, in this strong country, but all over Europe, you see the supply chains and the value chains, they are very strong. It is in every part of Europe, it is in so many different industries. And that allows us to benefit from ideas of thousands of innovative businesses, not just a few giants. And that is vital in a world where innovation is your way to survive. Our European single market, 450 million people, consumers, well, they give European companies space to grow, and also give them the space to grow to be world market leaders, and the space to recover from hard times. We saw during the pandemic what happens when supply chains, they are interrupted. And we saw some very challenging weeks when long queues of trucks, well, they were there before Member States and the European Commission put in place green lanes to facilitate the movement of goods within the internal market. Closed borders, long queues of trucks, that should not happen again. And we're working with governments in our Single Market Enforcement Task Force to make sure that the rules that keep the single market open, that those rules, they are really enforced. But European businesses trade beyond Europe. And Europe is a trading continent. Our trade agreements, they connect us with the world, and they bring enormous benefits to businesses and to citizens. And these agreements, they also promote European standards abroad. Being open to trade, though, must not come at the cost of accepting dumping or unfair competition, for that matter. When those things happen, it's okay to say thank you, but no thanks. We look at ways how to protect the level playing field, like rules to deal with harmful foreign direct investment, or to stop foreign subsidies undermining fair competition in the single market, as well as a carbon border adjustment mechanism to avoid that European industry is suffering from its effort to tackle climate change. All of that, of course, with the aim of fully reaping the benefits that comes from trading. There are some of the strengths that make our economy competitive, along with many others: good infrastructure, skilled people, fair and dependable laws, competition in the markets. And to get the most of our potential, well, Europe needs to invest in getting ahead in some vital changes. The future of our economy is digital and green. And the success of Europe's industry depends on being prepared for that future and shaping that future. And this is a challenge, but it's also an historic opportunity to build a greener, a more digital, a more competitive industry, because that is what will make us resilient. It's a possibility to lead in developing a digital and green economy also globally. And green and digital obviously goes hand in hand. You know the examples even better than I do, so just let me give a few. If we invest now in smart energy tools, we can significantly use energy consumption. Artificial intelligence is already used to develop less energy-intensive products. And we have the capacity to become world leaders in low-energy microprocessors. Let's use that innovative capacity. It's now time for the change towards a more digital and a greener economy. Of course, such a transformation is not done by business alone. It's a joint endeavour. Our recovery plan, Next Generation EU, will support the reforms we need and allow us to spend 750 billion euros into Europe's common future. And we need to make sure that we spend that kind of money wisely, because we have lent them of the next generation. So governments have to put at least 37% of the money they spend from this recovery and resilience facility into tackling climate change. And they should also spend at least 20% on digital investment. A key element, of course, is to help European businesses to make the most of digital technologies. Today, just to give you a few numbers, only 1 in 6 European companies use data and advanced cloud services. And to grasp the opportunities, well, we need to know a way around the digital world. But the truth of the matter is that only 2 in 5 Europeans have even basic digital skills. So, as we set out last week in our Digital Education Action Plan, we need to invest in digitizing education so much more to make it more inclusive, more tailor-made, and also to train so many more digital specialists so that European businesses can get the talent that they need to innovate and to be competitive. Connections with government also need to be more digital. For example, needs Europe's small and medium-sized businesses. They need to be able to have faster, simpler ways to connect with government when they pay their taxes, when they are looking for a permit, when they make a bid for a public tender. And many Europeans still don't have a secure digital identity to give them control over their own data and to know that they can trust the people that they're dealing with because they are also clearly identified. So we will soon propose a European digital identity that we can use to access public and private services and make transactions in a secure way. Meanwhile, our money for our climate goals should speed up the shift to green energy, to help us rebuild our energy system, to help install renewable power plants. And it could help to make transport and industry greener by supporting hydrogen. It could be building filling stations, but it could also be to help build the plants that will make green hydrogen from water, so that we will get there where we can have green steel or green cement. And with the right investment, we can make sure that digitization does not harm our climate goals. That, for example, the energy-hungry data centers, that they run on green electricity and their waste heat is being reused. The money that we spend, well, as said, we should spend it well, because they are not ours. They come from a public purse. We have lent them from the next generation. And this is also why public investment should not be used to replace investment that any normal, well-driven private business would have made anyway. And we should make sure that we do not spend in a way that we undermine Europe's industry's ability to compete by harming competition, weakening the single market. And our state aid rules there can help exactly with this, because this is why we have these rules in place. For the last month, since March, we have had a temporary framework for state aid. And that has enabled Europe's national governments to use public money to protect businesses and jobs without undermining the single market. On Friday, we launched a consultation on extending the use of the temporary framework till mid-next year. And at the same time, we're reflecting on how to provide a clear and smooth path to approve aid that supports Europe's recovery, with the right conditions, of course, to make sure that it's well used. The state aid rules, they already offer ways to bring together public and private money from across Europe, and that is what we call important projects of common European interest. Like the plan we approved last year for 7 European member states with numerous businesses to come together to invest in the next generation of innovative greener batteries. And just as a note, that has now enabled investment in batteries to a higher degree than in China. There are also many other ways to put together public-private partnerships. Joint undertakings, for instance, like the one that is now working to give us a common capacity of very advanced computers that will give us the scale and the energy and the scope that we need in order to have it. It's not important what badge a project wears. The important thing is that it happens. And I think that is one way of making the best of public and private resources. As the European Council emphasized last week, the green challenge that we're going through called for an ambitious European industrial policy. And to enable European industry to become greener, more digital and competitive globally, well, we will update our European industrial strategy to make sure that it takes into account what we have learned during the corona crisis. A strategy for European industry should be underpinned by an approach that governments and industry work together. And this is why we will soon be ready to launch the European Industrial Forum, which brings together companies of all sizes with researchers, unions, EU, national governments. And Europe's industrial strategy, well, that recognizes that source of prosperity and competitiveness, such as innovation, investment and trade. But it should also offer tools to strengthen the strategic part of our economy. I've said it before, so now you know I'm reaching my conclusion. We are all in this together. Our cooperation is our strength, lack of cooperation is our weakness. We have the opportunity to rebuild our economy in a way that is fit for the world we want to live in. But in order to do that, we all have to do our bit. And this is why, as we update our industrial strategy, we plan to work more closely with industry, with national governments, with other stakeholders. Let us ensure that when we spend money from the Recovery and Resilience Facility, we do it in the best possible way. To build this sustainable and prosperous Europe, and to crowd in private investment, because everyone knows that public spending will never, ever make it alone to that future. We will not get a second chance like the one we have right now. The time to get it right, that time is now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will take many of these aspects today and tomorrow and discuss them in depth with German politicians and with German industry leaders. We'd be very grateful if we could ask one more question. You said right at the beginning of your statement that it's not too late to build a better and a greener future. What do you expect from the German government with regards to this, and also from German companies?
Well, first and foremost, obviously, to finalize the presidency with these flying colors that they have already started, because we really feel the energy and the ambition from the presidency. But of course, we also hope that they will lead the way to show that also the recovery in a German context will be green and digital, because we need to learn from one another. And since everyone is looking for German industry, and of course all the other industries in the value chain are looking at German industry as well, of course to find that enthusiasm, the strategies, the willingness to do more, because we live in times where it's so easily to get depressed, to just, you know, hunch a little, go back in, it's soon winter, let's lit a candle. But this is not what we need. We need that energy, that enthusiasm, that willingness, that innovativeness that comes from German industry. And I say that ever so often again when I say, oh, but all the big ones, they are Americans. Yes, but don't underestimate the culture that we have here. A culture of engineering, of business, of industry. That is a European culture, and that is what will enable us to make it for the next 10 years.
We just don't talk about it as much as others, probably.
No, but maybe we should. Maybe we should be a bit more assertive and a bit more proud of all the things that we have achieved.
Thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you very much for your keynote speech.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Day.
Thank you very much.